Welcome. Thank you for joining me today to learn more about the Child Development Associate, or the CDA. My name is Dr. Claudine Campanelli, and I'm the Senior Director of Career Development and Higher Education at the New York Early Childhood Professional Development Institute here at CUNY. I'm also a faculty member at CUNY School of Professional Studies, where I serve as the Program Director for the SPS's credit-bearing CDA. I've been invited by Alyssa Vine, CUNY's University Director of Credit for Prior Learning, to share more information about the CDA. CUNY's Office of Academic Affairs will be convening a committee of faculty from early childhood education programs across the university to evaluate the CDA for credit for prior learning purposes. The committee will determine the certification's alignment with college-level learning and recommend how CUNY colleges should award credit to individuals who have earned the CDA credential. This video is intended as a way for interested faculty to learn more about the specific requirements, standards, and competencies associated with the CDA. We hope that this will help the committee start out on the same page about what the CDA is and the learning and assessment process it represents. First, I'd like to share a little bit more information about the Institute. We're a public-private partnership here at the university, and we lead the work to elevate the field of early childhood throughout the city and state. We have a number of initiatives, including the Career Development Center, which I'm part of, the New York Works for Children, which is supporting the systems of the workforce here in our state, Quality Stars New York, which is the quality rating improvement system here, the Informal Family Childcare Projects, coaching and professional development, and the New York City Early Childhood Research Network, just to name a few. The Early Childhood Career Center's goal is to support educators in their career and academic career mobility and all of the pathways. So that may be moving them into CDAs like the one at CUNY School of Professional Studies, or a non-credit bearing one throughout one of our many other trainers and training organizations throughout the state, or moving them into degree programs at your programs, maybe an associate's, bachelor's, master's, and supporting teachers through teacher certification and many other services. The career centers can be found in all 10 economic regions of New York State. The different services include academic planning and advising, career and vocational assessment, certification and credential supports, scholarships and tuition assistance, resume and job preparations, along with many other career services. In addition, the Career Center and the Institute have a very special partnership with CUNY School of Professional Studies. And in that space, we oversee their credit-bearing CDA, which has been operating since 2012 at the undergraduate level, and their credit-bearing CPAC program since 2006, which is the Children's Program Administrator Credential at the graduate level. Today, we're going to spend much more time talking about the CDA. And so first, I want to talk about the credentialing issuing agency, and that is the Council for Professional Recognition, and they're based in Washington, D.C. So many individuals can attain the training for the CDA and attain completion certifications. Only the Council of Professional Recognition can award the credential. The CDA itself is a nationally recognized credential. It is transferable and recognized in 37 states and territories and several countries. It's also listed in federal regulations for early Head Start, and military-based childcare centers as qualification requirements. And lastly, the competencies that we're going to speak of later in some later slides are research-based. The goals and the intention of the Council and of the CDA is, one, to develop highly qualified teachers, to create opportunities for career and academic mobility, to strengthen the workforce, and to ensure that our providers and teachers have the skills, knowledge, and disposition to serve families and children well. Now, some of the work that PDI has been involved in includes that we are one of the council's stakeholder members. So we are one of 37 either organizations or individuals who actually sit and provide advisement to the Council of Professional Recognition. We have also supported through the PDGB-5 federal grant the replication of the CUNY SPS program to 7 other SUNY programs to really drive the initiative to continue to support and build the early childhood workforce with these entry-level credentials. We've also consulted outside of New York City and New York State, and specifically with the state of Massachusetts and their EEC, which is equivalent to our OCFS, and their community college networks. Several years ago, their EEC and their state required that each community college embed a credit-bearing CDA. So all individuals who are attaining an associate's degree would also simultaneously get that CDA. And so through the advisement, we feel that we have some unique pieces of knowledge that we can share here with you about the CDA and the process and life cycle of the CDA. Additionally, the Institute, in their support of CUNY SPS, understands the various options for credit-bearing CDA and non-credit-bearing CDAs. The program at CUNY SPS is a 12-credit program. It is also recognized by the New York State Department of Ed as a certificate. We currently have 7 articulation agreements into associate's and bachelor's degree programs across CUNY and SUNY. And the courses also meet the New York State Ed requirements for CTLE for individuals who require them for the New York State Assistant Teacher Certification or teacher certifications. Now, the requirements to attain a CDA is universal. And what we see here on the screen are the minimum requirements that any individualized trainer, training organization, or university needs to provide a CDA candidate. 1, all applicants to the council must hold a high school diploma or GED. Additionally, each individual must attain a minimum of 120 hours of lecture and coursework. If individuals are going to be acquiring multiple designations, which we'll get into in a moment, they will need more than 120 hours. Individuals will need 480 hours of fieldwork per designation, have a completed portfolio, a completed application to the council, complete a written exam, and a verification visit. And we're going to break down these requirements separately in some later slides. The CDA is based on a set of competencies and standards. We have 6 competencies, 8 standardized areas, and 13 functional areas. And each candidate must demonstrate competency in these areas through their portfolio, their written exam, and observations of work with children, their peers where they work, and their family members. Now, I know this slide might be difficult to read. However, this is the standard competency goals outlined by the Council for Professional Recognition. Now, for those of you who will be joining the committee, we will have this as a downloadable document to support your ongoing review of the standards and competencies. Now, earlier I mentioned designations. So as individuals decide that they want to hold this CDA credential, they actually must choose a designation, and designations are determined by the setting, the age level, and if the individual wishes to specialize in a language. So settings are based on either center-based programs, family daycare programs, or home visitor programs. Then the individual needs to be endorsed by an age group, either infant toddlers, preschool, or if they are in family or home visitor settings, they will be endorsed for all age groups, birth through 5. And then lastly, individuals can specialize based on a bilingual status. And so this will be an area where an individual can demonstrate their proficiency in 2 languages, English and a second language of choice. This specialization is not indicating that the individual is learning how to necessarily work with classrooms that are bilingual. It is determining that they themselves are proficient in 2 languages. Now, as individuals are choosing their designations, they need to be aware that the designations are not universal, meaning they do not allow them to work in all settings. So this document demonstrates on the left-hand column all the different opportunities where individuals can be employed with a CDA. And then across the top, you can see the 4 designations. And you can see that not all designations allow those individuals to work in those spaces. And so it is important that when individuals are deciding on their designation, they understand where they want to work or where they currently are working so that they're making sure that they're attaining the correct credential. As individuals are moving through their coursework, and once they have completed that coursework, they have the opportunity to move on for their exams. The exam process is 3 steps. First, it's a written exam, which is a 65 multiple choice question exam taken at a Pearson testing site on a computer. Then they need to have a completed portfolio. This portfolio is organized in a very prescribed way set out by the council. And then lastly, there is a verification visit, or what one might call a practical, where individuals will be observed for 2 hours in their field placement or place of employment. They will also have an hour where their portfolio will be reviewed by this PD specialist. And last hour will be a reflective interview. Now, individuals, before they can even qualify for their exams, must have completed 480 hours of fieldwork in the designation that they're applying for. And so if they're going to be working with family group family, they must be working with children birth through 5 in those settings. Infant toddlers must demonstrate hours or experience with young infants, mobile infants, and toddlers. And our preschoolers must demonstrate, or not our preschoolers, our individuals wanting to work with preschoolers must demonstrate hours with 3s, 4s, and 5s. The hours, again, can be conducted at their place of employment, as long as these are a licensed or regulated spaces, such as our daycare centers. These can be in our New York City public schools or other public schools offering UPK, internship sites that are regulated. And if individuals are seeking that bilingual designation, then their classroom that they are employed in must be a bilingual setting. Now, if a family child care provider would like to have a center-based endorsement, there are steps for them to potentially get a waiver from the council, and this is listed here. However, it is very rare that individuals who are in a family group setting can be credentialed in a center-based modality, such as infant toddlers or preschoolers. Now, before I indicated that each candidate must create a portfolio, these are going to be prescribed, and they must create a resource collection that is for themselves and families that meet the competencies. So this is going to be everything from menus, learning activities, demonstration that they've completed a CPR and first aid course, a bibliography of appropriate books for their age group, as some examples. Also competency statements, and these are essays demonstrating what they do in the classroom that demonstrates their competencies. They'll also have family surveys and a professional philosophy statement. So who conducts this assessment? So I've mentioned that there's this verification visit, or what one might call a practical. This individual is a paid consultant of the council, and they will visit the CDA candidate in their place of employment or internship site. Now, the PD specialist must meet the minimum qualification requirements. They must hold a degree in early childhood or a related field, have experience in the designation they are qualifying that candidate for, and be fluent in the language they are observing. So if the individual is in a bilingual classroom, say English and French, then that PD specialist must be bilingual in English and French. If they're observing somebody for monolingual, then that PD specialist also needs to be fluent in in that language. PD specialists must complete asynchronous training, pass an exam, and complete assessments each year, or they will be unable to renew as a PD specialist and consultant to the council. Now, we've mentioned a few things about the language options, and so I'll briefly talk about what does that bilingual CDA mean. An individual who's attained a bilingual CDA means that they were required to complete their coursework in English. The fieldwork must be in a bilingual setting. Their portfolio will be converted both into English and the second language of choice, and it is the candidate's responsibility to translate that work. Their written exam will be in English or Spanish if they're a bilingual Spanish. If they're their second choice is another language such as French or Arabic or Russian, then they will be required to do their written exam in English. And then their verification visit will be conducted by a bilingual consultant in that bilingual setting. Now, there is also a monolingual CDA, and that is where the individual has attained all of their coursework in that language. So, for example, if an individual wished to have a monolingual CDA in Arabic, their coursework would have been attained in Arabic. Their fieldwork would be in a monolingual full immersion classroom. Their portfolio will be in that selected language. Their written exam will need to be in that monolingual choice, and they must have permission from the council prior to starting the coursework in that monolingual language. They also must take the written exam on paper and not at a Pearson testing site. And so the training site must ensure that they can find a translator for that exam purpose. Additionally, monolingual CDAs only certify that teacher to work in a monolingual classroom. If we have more questions about that monolingual CDA, we'll definitely explore them more in our committee meetings. Now, the council does recommend and require books. The first is the portfolio needs to be in a 3-ring binder. There is something called the Essentials textbook, and the council is quite clear that individuals who do not read or review the Essentials textbook will find it challenging to pass the written exam. Everything that needs to be acquired in regards to the knowledge and the competency alignments is found there. Lastly is the competency books, and depending on the individual's designation, they would acquire one of the 4 books that you see here. So for example, if someone is in the preschool designation, they would acquire the green preschool edition of that book. This book is required to be purchased new, as there are items that need to be torn from this book and placed into the portfolio, and the individual's verification rubric for the exam will be pulled out from here. So this book is something that must be acquired by all candidates. Does the CDA credential expire? And the answer is yes. The CDA expires every 3 years. To renew, the council will contact the CDA holder with a reminder for renewal. They will have within that time frame, typically about 6 months to renew, which includes a renewal fee, submission of a current CPR and first aid card, and proof that within the last 3 years, they have attained at least 1 college course or 3 college credits, or 30 hours of ongoing professional development. Now, what if the candidate has expired? Well, the council does allow them to recertify. Now, they do not have to retake the course no matter how dated the courses are from. The coursework does not expire, but the candidate does have to reapply to the council and redo all of the exam steps. So including a new written exam, a new verification visit, and a new portfolio. And if they haven't been employed, they do need to redo their fieldwork, as after 3 years, that fieldwork would have expired. So all of that fieldwork needs to be current. So as we move into determining what is the difference between a certification and the credential, the credential is issued by the Council for Professional Recognition. So individual trainers, training organizations, and not even colleges can issue the credential. They can only issue a certificate of completion. And this is an example of what that credential will look like. Now, along the way, we at universities and career centers and employers will see many of these completion certifications, and they all look different depending on where they're coming from. And these are things that we will discuss in our committee meeting. So you will see here that this one is clearly indicating that it was a Child Development Associate credential training, and we can see why some individuals can be confused that there are next steps to attain a credential. However, all this is indicating is that the individual completed 120 hours towards that credential. Now, as someone receiving this credential or certificate, I have no idea what else has been evaluated of this individual, and that is why the credential is important, because these training agencies and training individuals, some do have no assessment process. They only provide the 120 hours of training. Now, these certificates, again, are going to look different depending on where they've been acquired, whether it's from a state agency, a large training organization. This is an example from a continuing education department at a college, and CUNY offers them quite similarly as well. Some of our campuses use a service called Ed2Go, and these documents will never indicate that they were from a third party and only that they're from the college. We'll also see certificates where it indicates less than the 120 hours, and that is because individuals can actually stack training hours and PD to also attain their credential. So here's an example where they were provided 60 to 80 hours on one certificate. Very vague here about what was acquired. And again, 2 hours here, 2 hours there, and some demonstrate what the CDA competency is, and some do not. And so these are some of the things that we're going to be reflecting on as a committee on how to address the certificates versus the credential. Some additional information as we move into our committee meetings for you to understand is there is currently no validity or reliability data publicly available regarding the written exam or verification assessment tool. We have requested this information from the council for this upcoming committee convenings, and hopefully we will receive that. The council has been unable to provide pass-fail rates for their exams for any designations, and again, we have asked for this information from the council. There is no set or approved curriculum, only competencies. So what is covered in the coursework varies from trainer, training organization, and even universities. Lastly, there are no qualification requirements for trainers or training organizations. So in regards to next steps, the work of the CDA Evaluation Committee will be looking closely at these standards, competencies, functional areas, as well as the credential requirements and mechanisms for assessing CDA candidates in order to identify how the learning associated with the CDA aligns with the learning outcomes and competencies associated with CUNY curriculum in early childhood education. The committee's evaluation process will rely on resources, including a variety of training materials and curricula in use across New York State, crosswalks of competencies, activities, and functional areas, and their designation documents, the council's verification visit rubric, and a sampling of CUNY SPS articulation agreements, portfolio requirements, and all of this, along with materials from the National Association for the Early Childhood and previously unavailable data from the Council on Professional Recognition, will help the committee understand what the CDA means as a credential of value in the field of childcare and in higher education. We hope that many faculty across CUNY will take an interest in this work to establish credit for prior learning pathways into CUNY colleges for CDA credentialed childcare staff. We welcome you, if you have general CPL and committee questions, to contact Alyssa Vine, or if you have specific questions about the CDA or about the work at the Institute and the Career Center, please feel free to contact me. We look forward to seeing you at the next committee convening.